Hello, everybody. It's Dadman Walking 55 on another Sunday evening, coming with another college football weekend wrap up show, a recap of this week's action. This week, we're doing a little bit more than just the Southeastern Conference because the regular season ended last week, and this previous week, we had the conference championship games in the five power conferences and a number of other smaller conferences. So, it's a lot less football. We're at the end of the season, obviously, so it's all coming down to this. We are down into the last month of the season. In December, we come to the bowl games, which lead up to the college football playoff with the four teams that have been identified and have been set. And hopefully tonight we'll take some time. We'll look at all of that, kind of talk about some interesting things, and we'll see what's coming down the road. After we recap this week's action and talk a little bit about the games that had come up, that had played this weekend, and some of the interesting action that we saw. Some games were quite a blowout. Some were close to half, and some started off one way and then ended up complete the opposite direction. So it was a very interesting weekend of football, to say the least. You saw a little bit of everything. We had block kicks, we had rough punters, we had big play touchdown, we had long drives. And now at the end of this season, we have a lot of angry fans of teams that got left out of the playoff system. So, and we'll tease that a little bit later, and hopefully, we'll have more people here to chat. As always, feel free to leave any questions you have in the chat. We love talking football. Anything that if you have questions, feel free to shoot them out. We'll try to handle them. If you follow a favorite team, we'll look and see what bowl game they ended up getting to this year. I know for sure I have a really interesting bowl game involving teams of mine. So, but I won't spoil that yet, but we will have plenty of time to do so. And Mrs. Dadman Walking, I believe your Tulane team has got a decent bowl game this year for them. So that will be a good thing. And of course, let me start off with the one and the only. Thank you, my biggest fan, Mrs. Dadman. Glad to see you today so much as always. Thank you for that encouragement. And Geeky, hey y'all. Yeah, I know. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Yeah, I tell you, those particular games, I'm going to talk about some observations I had with those two games, because those were not bad picks. They just went, the games were interesting, and we'll talk about that as we get there. And yes, we'll spoil this one now. That's appropriate that Tennessee got the Big Orange Bowl. I told you were coming to Florida. It just depended if you were in Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, or Miami. But you got the big one. So we got three people here. If you're watching on the YouTube side, leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you're on Twitch, make sure you follow us over there. Both are Dadman Walking 55. And we like to have a lot of fun layback. So let's talk some football tonight. We don't have 200 games to do. We don't have a lot of stats. So it's just a chance to sit back, chill a little bit, review this week's action, and see what's coming down the road for us. There will be some interesting matchups coming up very, very, very soon. So hope everybody had a good weekend. I know some of your teams won, some of your teams lost, some of your teams didn't play. But I will say, at least to Geeky, at least Alabama got left out, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. So that makes a lot of people happy. Oh, man. So, hey. Well, with that, let's go ahead and get started with the show itself. We'll take a look, as we usually do. We'll look at last week's games, and we will go from there. But remember, Everything you see here is not for gambling. We're just people having fun talking football. We'll see what just we don't do points, we don't do other kind of stuff. We just sit here, pick the winners the best we can, and many times it does not work out, but we'll see what happens. We just have fun with it. So, and yes, Geeky, I'm sure that the great Saban is butthurt with that. They actually had him, I think, on Fox during the Big 12 game last night, interviewing him. Of course, trying to pitch for their team to make the playoff. So, but if you look at the end results, it probably is right considering the wins losses of each of the teams. Again, I don't want to jump ahead too far because I'm going to spoil some points that I've got. But hey, so let's start with looking back at this week's action. So, okay, what we did this week was conference championship week. There were some little conferences like the Mountain West Conference and some other smaller conferences that had it. The MAC had their conference championship games, but we focused on the 5 power conferences that are around. The Southeastern Conference, the Big 12 Conference, the Big 10 Conference, the Big 12 Conference, and I think it said Pac-12 Conference and the Atlantic Coast Conference. So, and that's where we focus this week in our time and effort on. So as we look here, here's the overall game results for the week that happened. The first game involved the number 1 seed overall and the number 1 team in the country, which was the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia went ahead and really ran away with this game pretty early. They pulled away for a 50-30 win over LSU. Game started really interesting for LSU, where they were driving the ball but had to settle for a field goal attempt. Quite appropriately, as how the first game of the season ended for them, the first chance to score in this game happened where you had a block kick. Well, LSU didn't defend a block kick. Georgia picked the ball up, ran it 95 yards for a touchdown, putting LSU in a hole at the very beginning. In Georgia, LSU responded very quickly with it, but the problem, what happened with Georgia's offense, just took over very early. LSU could never stay in the game. Jaden Daniels, the quarterback, got hurt at halftime or before halftime, didn't come out for the second half. Although Garrett Nussmeier, the backup quarterback for LSU, really looked good and performed well in the time that he had. But this is a game where the Georgia offense just came out and dominated the defense. They haven't done that at times this year. Georgia ended up, amassing total offensive yards of roughly 530 yards, 274 in the air, 255 on the ground. Stetson Bennett was 23 of 29 for 274 yards, 4 touchdowns. So that right there, I mean, a quarterback that has been, people tried to label and dismiss, comes through in a big championship game with only 6 incompletions. Kendall Milton for the Dogs ran the ball only 8 times, but for 113 yards. Really efficient day. Brock Bowers had 6 catches for 81 yards for Georgia. And Lance McConkey had 5 catches for 69 yards, but he left the game with a knee injury, which could be a big blow depending on how serious the issue with his knee is. So LSU had a decent offensive day, though. The LSU threw for 502 yards, only ran the ball for 47 yards, so they were really one-dimensional in this game. Unlike other games, Georgia was very effective to not let Jaden Daniels run the ball on them. Jaden Daniels only ended up 6 carries for a -6 yards on the day. If you look at the times when LSU has been very effective, they've actually run the ball with the quarterback being the leading rusher many, many games, leading to many, many scores. So you got to credit Georgia defense, even though they gave up 30 points. Overall, it was very effective in what they did to limit what LSU did well. LSU did have 2 receivers, though, that were in triple digits in terms of receiving yards. Um, roughly the two of them combined for about 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. So LSU had a very effective day passing the ball. Turnovers seemed pretty even in this game. It really was not it was a blowout, but not a complete blowout. The stats are deceiving. 549 yards for LSU, 529 yards for Georgia. Georgia, though, had time of possession advantage by about 11 minutes, 35-24. First downs were fairly even, 27-23. LSU did have a few more turnovers, though, but 3-1. But overall, you knew Georgia was going to win this game early when they established a 35-10 halftime lead. You credit LSU for fighting back in the second half with a backup quarterback who really looked very good throwing the football. So, it's been a good year for LSU. LSU can't be upset. They have a lot to be happy about. They ended up with a fourth loss, but considering for a team that was figured to be towards the bottom of the SEC West, it's a very, very good year. They had some very impressive wins, beat some very, very good teams. They beat Alabama, and they made the championship game in Atlanta. So hats off to LSU for doing that. But, of course, as all expected, Georgia will make the march on to the national championship rounds, featuring a return trip to Atlanta in a couple weeks. And we'll look at that in a little bit. The second game of the week was really an odd game. Was Utah beats USC 47-24. This game started out really one-sided with USC jumping up 17-3 really early. And it was really like a combination of, it was like a tale of two games between the two halves. Early in the game, the first quarter was very heavy towards USC. In spite of the defense for Utah, USC's offense was having its way with Utah on offensively. Utah could barely score and keep up. Oh yeah, boo! Yeah, I know, but yeah, I tell you what, if this game really started good for USC, the craziest thing was the way when this game flipped. It flipped and it flipped hard and quickly, and it went hardcore the other way. As I mentioned, USC had a 17-3 lead in the first half. Utah fought to a 17-17 tie at halftime. Utah only scored once, take a 7-point lead in the third quarter, but then in the fourth quarter, Utah blew it open, outscoring USC 23-7 in the fourth quarter alone. So when you look at the game, it was very heckle jekyll. You would hate to have been a USC fan, considering how well that game started, how they got a big lead. But Utah was known for its defense, got knocked around a little bit early, but righted the ship and really dominated USC for the rest of the game. Cam Rising for Utah passed for 310 yards, and Utah ran for roughly 225 yards in the game. So they got over 500 yards of offense against the USC, who was quite assured of a playoff spot with a win in this game, but they did not hold the line here to win this game, which they had so much on the line. Caleb Williams, who is a potential Heisman Trophy winner, was 28-41, 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. While USC threw for almost 400 yards, they only ran the ball for 56 yards. So, really, really a disappointing end for USC, considering that they had it made to make a top 4 position. So, and let me say hi to Atwood. Hey, thanks for coming. Appreciate you being here. If you have any questions about football, just ask. Okay, that's what we're here for. Love to talk football. Is there something you don't know about? We try to address those too. So why is everybody texting me this time? Let me put it. I got my phone on silent, but it still rings anyway. With that little digression, that's basically it with the Utah USC game. It's just two games they within a game. Very not surprised that Utah won, and I'm not surprised that Utah's defense held USC down. Just surprised by the final margin that Utah was that effective on offense, and that when they finally shut down the USC offense was really dramatic the way they did it. So then that's our second game for last week. So let me see as I'm flipping to the next thing. Let us go down to Michigan in the Big 12 game. Beats Purdue 43-22. You may think this was just a rout all from the beginning, but it really wasn't. The game was 14-13 Michigan at halftime. But again, another case where a superior defensive team, Michigan did shut down Purdue's offense in the second half, holding them to 9 points, while Michigan righted the ship, got their offense moving. Michigan was out without its leading running back in the game. So a lot of times when that happens, you end up having some issues, and it takes you a little while to get your offense going. It's usually kind of clunky at times. And yeah, Atwood, go Dogs. Yeah, I know a lot of people around here agree with that. And go Wolverines, yes. So a lot of Big Ten fans too around. Purdue had a decent offensive day of about 450 offense, 370 in the air, but 2 interceptions by the quarterback. So turnovers in a game like this really will kill a team like Purdue, who came into the game 8-4. This looked like a mismatch on paper coming in, which in the end it turned out to be. Michigan, J.J. McCarthy was 11 of 17 for 161 yards, and yet despite the loss of the leading running back, they ran for 225 yards. Really impressive day. Donovan Edwards for the Wolverines ran 25 times for 185 yards, averaging 7.5 yards a carry with a touchdown. So very impressive by effort by Michigan. They didn't panic when it was close at halftime, and no, oh, sorry, I misread that. It was Geeky that said go Wolverines. Okay. But it really was no real surprise here. It's about to be expected, and it was one of those games when you have one great team and one not so good team. So we got that. But speaking of bad games, really, this was a crappy game. This is one that when Geeky and I previewed the other night, it could go either way depending on which quarterback showed up for Clemson, how things went. This is really, like I've said before, I've attended the first 3 ACC championship games. I'm not a fan of ACC football. It's really not boring. It's just, it's hard to describe it other than meh, at least to me. If you've watched it sometimes in person, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But let me see. We'll get some more stats here. Hey, we got 7 people watching now. Hey, good. Make sure if you're watching on the Twitch side, make sure you follow, and on the YouTube side, like the video, and share it. Leave comments afterwards too, and I love lurkers too. You're great watching it later, but also feel free to leave a question in the chat or comment. I mean, even if you don't know football, I'll take some time and try to explain it. So, as Geeky says, ACC, who are they? I don't know. But hey, nothing's better than a 60-degree day, a 50-degree day in the rain in a stadium watching people kick field goals. And yes, smash that like button like the Hulk. Yes, thank you. Excuse me. Okay, well, with this game, sorry about that. As I said earlier, in our preview game last week, we talked about this game depended on a lot of factors. Which North Carolina team showed up, but probably more importantly, was the Clemson. Which quarterback came to play for them? Was it the quarterback that threw for 99 yards against Clemson, or who showed up against Notre Dame, or the one that beat Wake Forest with a game that was not expected? Well, actually, in this case, that quarterback got pulled out of this game, part of the way through due to various struggles. His backup was Cade Klubnik from Austin, Texas, a freshman who was 20 of 24, threw for 279 yards and a touchdown. So it's he came in and saved the day for the Tigers and led them on to a 39-10 win over North Carolina. He also had 7 carries for 30 yards and a touchdown. So very impressive day for a backup quarterback coming off the bench in a championship game. So really, Clemson did not run the ball well in this game. It was Klubnik's throwing ability that really saved the day for North Carolina. North Carolina statistically was decent, 270 yards passing, 113 on the ground. Not too many turnovers. Overall, it was just once Clemson got its feet under itself, there was no stopping them. There was no scoring in the fourth quarter. At halftime, it's 24-10 Clemson. In the end, statistically, North Carolina outgained Clemson by 1 yard. And North Carolina held the ball for 11 minutes more than Clemson did. Another big factor, though, even though North Carolina had more first downs by 9 than Clemson, North Carolina also had 3 turnovers. Clemson committed 0. So those turnovers count in a big game like this and can make a big difference. Even though statistics tell you one thing, losing the balls, can set you back quite quickly. So, let's see. So with that, that's Clemson, North Carolina games. And like I said, if you got any questions, if you've watched these games, feel free to leave a comment or something in the chat. If you got a question, it's all good. And, we're here to talk some football. So we'll move into the last game of the week. The best game competitively by far, which was the TCU Kansas State game. TCU, this was an interesting game. TCU scrambled back from 11 down in the fourth quarter to tie it to force overtime. And let's see. Just pull up another stat sheet here real quick, folks. But they were down 28-17 in the fourth quarter and used a field goal, which we've talked about on the show many, many times about do you take the points or not. They used a field goal with about 7 minutes left and then a touchdown with about 2 minutes left and a 2-point conversion to tie it to force overtime to this game. Statistically, looking at this game, Kansas State threw for about 200 yards and also ran for 200 yards. So balanced offense, about 400 yards total on offense. When you look at TCU, they had about 470 yards of offense, 250 through the air, 218 rushing. Max Duggan, their quarterback, was 18 of 36 for 251 yards. He threw a touchdown and a pick, but he also ran the ball 15 times for 110 yards, including a 40-yard touchdown run to tie the game, to set up the go-ahead to the late score near the end that allowed TCU to tie the game. Overall, this was really a fun game to watch. It was the best game of all of them that I watched. It was back and forth. It also, like the USC Utah game, was a tale of two games. Early on, it looked like TCU was going to run away from Kansas State. They looked dominating, but Kansas State stopped. TCU finally got some stops and ended up righting the ship and pulling the game back. And it actually looked like Kansas State was going to run away itself. But dang it, guess what? TCU hung in and came back and tied it. It was really, really close game. Turnovers were negligible, 2-1. TCU had more. First downs were 20-18 Kansas State. Time of possession was 32-28. So very, very, very balanced there with that. And then Geeky. Damn it, TCU. We'll get to that later. Yeah, good job, TCU. But hey, it was an interesting game. That was by far, as I said, the best game to watch of the whole week. That really was the most entertaining of them. What I found very interesting is, like I had mentioned before, how a couple of these games were like a tale of two games. That USC got up so quickly ahead of Utah that you're like, okay, Utah's going to get blown out. This game's over. TCU, same thing. They got hot. They stopped Kansas State early, and this game's going to get out of hand. But they didn't. Both underdogs stopped, righted the ship, ended up changing the tone of the game. If you look at the Michigan game, Michigan, even though they were the heavy favorites, they struggled in the first half, but a complete different game in the second half. So it was a very interesting weekend of football, I will say. Good games if you liked them, even though the scores did not reflect it in some cases. It's even though some of these scores don't reflect it, they were still good games. For instance, Georgia LSU was still competitive a bit. You had a feeling that LSU was going to run at Georgia again, but they just could not score enough, and then they turned the ball over, and then Georgia's just Georgia right now, and it's they're very stoppable, unstoppable. But hey, we're going to look at the top four teams there in a minute. USC, you can say goodbye to your Pac-12 again, goes away. Bye-bye, Pac-12. The Beavers should have been there. Michigan, Purdue. Michigan's there. They're Clemson, what could have been had they beaten South Carolina. You talk about a team that lost a lot from one loss, and that is Clemson. I mean, with this, who knows? Clemson might have been able to out rank Ohio State to make the Final Four for the playoffs. And then TCU had a great season, tempted fate all year, finally lost, but then we're going to see how the pollsters treated them there at that. So anyway. Oh, hey, Squeaka. Glad you could make it. Scream louder, I'll make you an honorary frog. Yes, exactly. Well, glad you could make it. No, it didn't work. It came close, though, Squeaka. Yeah. And then Kika says hi. Mrs. says hi. A mouse frog? Oh, wow. That is fun. Like a cockamouse. Oh, my gosh. Okay. I have no clue what that looks like. So, anyway. But, hey, thank you all for being here. Make sure you follow on Twitch. If you are like and subscribe on the YouTube side, share the video too. So with that, let us go to the results of last week's picks. And I just boomered something. Let me bring it back up. And there we go. Hey, our picks from last week. Here's how it turned out. Well, technically, I can say Martin E with the C is no longer the only undefeated person here, because with going 5-0 with the Kansas State and Utah wins, with the Geeky and I both choosing Georgia, Michigan, and Clemson. I tell you, that was a crazy thing. Either one of those games could have gone either way at one point, especially the Kansas State game. I thought, yeah, but not by much. Just think if one thing about the TCU Kansas State game that would be very frustrating as a TCU fan. Their quarterback, Max Duggan, were running the ball effectively and really dominating the game, but they had 3 plays inside the 5-yard line, 2 within inside the 1-yard line, and they did not use him to try to run the ball. On 4th and goal, they still did a handoff, which Kansas State busted the line and stopped them short. So all Kansas State would need was a field goal. So with TCU, you almost wonder about the play calling there at the end, which really did not serve them well. But we'll see what happens. But anyway, could have been 4-1 very easily, Geeky. The Utah game got away from USC. But, hey, Geeky, always love having you here. And thank you for having been there. And, it's I at least we can give Mark D with a C a hard time that he's not the only undefeated one. He's probably going to point to that he had 12 games and I only had 5. But, that's life. Undefeated is undefeated. You know what I mean? So with that being said, let me go back here real quick. Okay. We saw last week let's see this real quick here. Okay. In the top 4 last week were Georgia, USC, Michigan, TCU. Okay. They were the ones that were in position to, damn it, TCU and USC. I'm a sort of lover. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Well, Geeky, you came to the wrong place. I don't know if people here will let you retype that one. Sorry. Wow. I know what you meant, but hey, so that going into the week was, everybody controlled their destiny. Well, we see USC and TCU lost. So let's see what happened as a result. The top 4 came out today, and with that, these will be the 4 teams that will play in the college playoff championship games coming up. Well, wrong button, and ta-da! We have Georgia as the Georgia Bulldogs as the number 1 seed, coming from the Southeastern Conference. We have then we have the Michigan Wolverines out of the Big 12 Conference. We also have the Texas Christian Horned Frogs from the great state of Texas down there out of the Big 12 Conference. And for something that does not happen very often, because usually everybody gripes about the Southeastern Conference getting 2 teams in the 4, the Big 12 gets a second team in, this time with the Ohio State University Buckeyes. And remember, you always have to say the, because for some reason they're the Ohio State University. So, but hey, that's the top 4 right there, and they will be playing. The first games will be on New Year's Eve, December 31st, at a couple bowl sites already established. Let's see, I'm finding the date. Bear with me 1 second. I had it here a second ago, but the way these games are set up is that they're played in existing bowl sites, and then the next week at one of those pre-selected bowl sites will be the championship game. Let me see. Okay, I'm just trying to find this on the fly. Bear with me, but if you have any questions, if you got anything to say out now, go ahead and say it now, right now, and love to hear any comments and any thoughts that you may have. Yes, it is December 31st are the semifinal rounds with the 4 teams. with Georgia as the number 1 seed and Ohio State the 4th seed. That will be the first matchup in the Peach Bowl at 8 p.m. in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So Georgia will play this will be the 3rd game that Georgia plays in that stadium this year. They started at the beginning of the year with a 49-3 bashing of the Oregon Ducks. They beat LSU 50-30 in the SEC championship game, and now they will fight against the Ohio State Buckeyes. And the second semifinal game will be played at the Verbo Fiesta Bowl in Tempe, Arizona, or Glendale, Arizona, technically, at State Farm Stadium at 4 p.m. Michigan will take on the Texas Christian Horned Frogs. So that is our setup with the Final Four coming up ahead. And let's see, Buckeyes, let's go Michigan. As much hate type this, go Georgia. Yeah, I know. Believe me, I feel gross saying that too. But there's no way I could go for a Big 12, a Big 10 team. I actually wouldn't mind TCU winning it. If Georgia got knocked out, I wouldn't mind TCU winning it. But I tell you, that Michigan team is something else. And just a current observation, because we're going for now. Georgia's pulled a crappy draw with a fourth seed. I would think TCU should have been the 4th seed, Ohio State the 3rd seed, since neither were a conference winner, because Georgia's going to have tough time with Ohio State, I think, and Michigan seems to get an easier draw with TCU. But that's just my opinion. That's kind of where it is right now. There's more to be, time to go on and things to be, time will pass and things like that. So while I got you here, let's take a look down the schedule of upcoming bowl games. And I'm just going to flick through. We're going to have, I'll tease it in just a minute. We'll have a bowl game special coming up in a few weeks, but I'm just trying to flip through and look at the Wasabi Fenway Bowl in Fenway Park, Boston, Massachusetts. Cincinnati Bearcats will play the Louisville Cardinal. Let's see, the New Mexico Bowl, SMU versus BYU. You got to love this name, the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl, presented by Stifel, Washington State and Fresno State. Oh my God. Okay, Squeaky, if you're there, Geeky, if you're there, Mrs., you're there. Anybody else that knows me, this is a dramatic. The what bowl? The Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl presented by Stifel. Yeah. Well, get this matchup. Hey, Small Time Republic. Good to see you, man. Hey, how are you doing? I don't know if you heard me last time, but congrats. I mean, your Auburn guys didn't end up in the basement by themselves. You guys did good. Wasabi. Yeah, no, I probably need some of that wasabi right now. I'm not one that eats it, but with my sinuses right now, I know I can use it. Oh, Geeky, that's what makes these bowl games and a bowl game special so fun, is the names of these stupid games sometimes. So anyway, okay, you people that really know me, this is a problem. The SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl, Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, 7:30 p.m. presents the Florida Gators versus the Oregon State Beavers. Who the hell do I choose in that game? I don't know. Bad thing is I might have to choose the Beavers, but we'll see. Oh, that's oh my God. How do I guess if I cheer for both teams, I can't go wrong, right? That, yes, I know that name, Wasabi Fenway Bowl. It's just, let's see. I'm trying to figure the Frisco Bowl. The Frisco Bowl is in Frisco, Texas. I wonder where Frisco, Texas is. I know like where Austin, San Antonio, Houston are, in Dallas, but Frisco? That's, I was thinking that was San Francisco, but I guess not. The Myrtle Beach Bowl, if anybody wants to go to South Carolina, you got Marshall and UConn. All right, here's a famous one. Here's one for all you football fans for a number of years. In Boise, Idaho, you have the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Yep. Which will have Eastern Michigan, and San Jose State playing. What the hell? I guess this is, and I do. Let's see. Let's see. How vain can Jimmy Kimmel have? It's odd. I know Small Town Republic, but yeah, it's these names. I was impressed at the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl many years ago. Over in Shreveport. But damn, I mean, these stars. I guess you can put your name on almost anything these days. The Gavers. Oh, maybe the Geevers. The Geavers or Gatvers. I don't know. Good try. Keep trying, Geeky. Keep trying. Yeah. He's got a bowl game. But listen, and when I say this, I do not. I mean, hats off to everybody that's had hurricane damage and stuff like that. But this is kind of appropriate for the state of Florida. Roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl. Like, geez. Which is Liberty Flames versus Toledo Rockets in Boca Raton. So, yep, the Lending Tree Bowl. That's actually been one that's not been too long around, But yeah, I remember that one. We got the R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, which is Western Kentucky, South Alabama. Now, I guess this is appropriate. Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. It will present Baylor and Air Force. So, at least one is in Fort Worth, Texas. So, oh gosh, it's not Pula and Reed Eater anymore. It's Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. Louisiana versus Houston. So, here's another good one. Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa, Florida, which is the Wake Forest Demon Deacons versus the Missouri Tigers. Oh, no, I'm getting to that. So, yeah, I'll get to that. The Outback Bowl isn't. Oh, I did not know that. I'm going down the list, but it's funny how with the advent of the corporate sponsorships, these names change all the time now. I know the one where we have here has changed quite a few times over the years. So, Silly Putty Bowl sounds like a good name, but got to get somebody to sponsor that from Silly Putty. But yeah, Gasparilla Bowl. That's kind of like, I don't know, just what is Gasparilla anyway? But hey, Serve Pro First Responder Bowl, which is Memphis versus Utah State. All these games in Dallas and Texas, though. There are quite a few games. It's like the bowl games are centered in Texas and Florida. Hey, here's a great kick game for you. The Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl. Who wants to go to Birmingham, Alabama in December? So, hey, sorry. I did like Birmingham. I got to sleep through driving through Birmingham while the missus drove through with hellacious traffic. So, it was quite an experience. Hey, if you're looking for a good loan, it's the Guaranteed Rate Bowl in Phoenix at Chase Field. Wisconsin Badgers playing the Oklahoma State Cowboys. So now we had an Armed Forces Bowl. Now we have a Military Bowl presented by Peraton, and it's UCF Central Florida versus Duke. So played at Annapolis, Maryland. So you've got a Military Bowl with no military. But hey, let's see. Mrs. says, I would the toilet bowl for the battle of the bottom teams. I agree with that. We could put Texas A&M against somebody, Northwestern or something like that. That'd be good. Or the battle for the basement toilet frog bowl. There you go. Small town Republic. Yeah, Birmingham. I think I've heard about the new stadium in Mobile. You know, Birmingham used to be the host many, many years of the SEC championship game. When the game started in 1992, that's where the game was played until a few years later they moved it to Atlanta like they did everything. I missed the games in Birmingham. It was smaller. It seemed like an old game, you know, not this big indoor stadium like production site, but you know, that's good that they have new stadiums in those areas. So, and then Mobile hosts the Senior Bowl, I believe. So, you know, they probably were in need for something newer. Oh yeah, this is Miss. You handled it perfectly while I was sleeping in the back. Yeah, four across 4 lanes of highway within like 600 feet. You know, that is how talented you were there. Exactly. You know, and hey, Small Town Republic agrees with you. It's pretty bad. Okay, the A&M against the Ducks is appropriate. You're being a little hard on the Ducks, but that's okay. And the Miss says a cereal bowl for teams who play better earlier in the day. Yes, like we said last week with the Midwest teams that end up playing at 11 o'clock because it's a noon kickoff. There's some people need some sleep. So I always like this name, San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. It used to just be the Holiday Bowl, but you know, it's the Oregon Ducks and the North Carolina Tar Heels. So, and another Texas bowl game. Texas Tech and Ole Miss playing the Tax Act Texas Bowl. So go figure that. Tax Act. Because there's the Tax Slayer in Jacksonville at the Gator Bowl, which we'll get to in just a second. Okay. For all you ladies out there that like Bad Boys, I know there are a few of you out there. So y'all chime up on this one. The Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. Syracuse versus Minnesota. Played at Yankee Stadium. So we have 2 bowl games in baseball fields. So for all you ladies that like the Bad Boys out there, there you go. There's your bowl game. And now, Mrs. To your thing, the Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando, Florida at Camping World Stadium has the Oklahoma Sooners and the Florida State Seminoles. So that's December 29th. Duke's Mayo Bowl. I don't like mayo, so you know if y'all do, that's cool. But Duke's Mayo Bowl, Maryland and NC State. Hey, who doesn't love this one? And these number of games in Texas, but this is a traditional game in El Paso, the Sun Bowl. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl has the Pitt Panthers and the UCLA Bruins. And as I mentioned, the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, I'm only going to mention this one because of this matchup, is that you've got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish versus the South Carolina Gamecocks. Very interesting matchup there. That's actually a game that might be worth paying to go see. So, or as Mr. said, the Fortnite Bowl, where a team might arbitrarily be ejected from the game. For all you Fortniters out there, that's because the end of season event yesterday apparently kicked a lot of people out at the end or somewhere during the middle of the event. So we only got a couple more because most of these, all the fun names are gone now. But because I know people out there, the Capital One Orange Bowl has number 6 Tennessee playing number 7 Clemson at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. The All-State Sugar Bowl has Alabama versus Kansas State in New Orleans. The Citrus Bowl actually has LSU and Purdue this year. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic has number 10. Oh, misses, this is your game. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. If you want to go to Arlington, Texas, I'll take you there. Number 10 USC versus number 16 Tulane. So the Green Wave have done really well this year to get into a game like that. That was very impressive. Hey, let's see. There you go. Wow. Hey, let's see. There we go. Had to do something real quick. Wow. Sorry, guys. I had to deal with business on the screen. So, wow. So, anyway, um, still offer open for the Cotton Bowl for you misses with Tulane. Rose Bowl, Big 12, Pac 12, Utah and Penn State play. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the other games, the other national playoff games. I thought there was a couple more games, though, because I didn't see the lending tree yet. So, but either way, that's all that I've run across real with some of the big names. We're going to have a full special coming up on all the bowl games in a few weeks. We're going to do it on Thursday, December 15th at 8 p.m. And we're going to probably will not talk through every little game, but we'll probably highlight some of the fun name games and stuff like that and have some fun with it. Yeah, and Small Town Republic, Tulane's first major bowl game since 1939. I did not realize that had been that long, but I know, I'm sure they're excited down there. So it's really, really, I'm sure, a happy time in New Orleans there for them. Squirrel. You're not talking about Squirrel White, the receiver for Tennessee, are you? That became our adopted favorite player this year with a name like Squirrel. So, but hey, as I said, 15, we're going to have a bowl special, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We'll look and make fun of some of the names. We'll see, maybe have some people on to help pick and see if we can pick by weird names or whatever we want to do, and have some fun with it this year. This is where you really just have fun with the season, enjoy that your team did good or maybe made a bowl or a reward, or, really the big thing is you get one more football game until 9 months from now, 8-9 months from now, depending on how good your team is. And, it's amazing how fast this season's flown. 13 weeks from the Southeastern Conference we've gone through this last week with conference championships. And I thank you for everybody that's been here from the beginning, during the middle, recently. Thank you all for jumping on the bandwagon, get the word out, and hopefully everybody likes it. Share the channel, and hopefully in the upcoming future, we're going to have some more non-sport, other type of content too. But really, my passion is college football. Love it, and it's a wonderful sport. And I think we saw this year some variability, especially like within the Southeastern Conference when you have a team like Texas A&M that's supposed to be doing just so well, had all these expectations, or Kentucky Wildcats, and then they fall. But then you have the Tennessee Volunteers that just come out of nowhere, just bash the hell out of everybody, and really impress people. Or LSU, even though LSU ended up losing 4 games, the fact that LSU with so many losses still managed to win the conference games it took to outlast Alabama and to win the conference, the division in the West. So, a lot of stuff. Vanderbilt, 2 wins. Who would have thought? If they win one more game, they would have been bowl eligible. Missouri, 4 losses by 1 score. Had they won those games, it could have been an SEC champ possibly, because one of those games was against Georgia. So, and that's what makes college football great. So, yep. All right. Yep. And remember, click the like button. If you're still here, we appreciate it all. And also, at the end of the month, on December 29th at 8 p.m. also, we're going to have a actual playoff special with focusing on the 4 teams that are scheduled to play. Remember, in the Peach Bowl, it's Georgia and Ohio State. And in the Fiesta Bowl, it is Michigan and Texas Christian. That's our 4 teams. And honestly, even though I'm an SEC homer, this is probably the right 4 that they got. The question comes up to, if you look at the way the polls fell, give me 1 second while I speculate on this real quick. Let me see. Because I believe the final poll had Alabama just ahead of Tennessee, just on the outskirts. That's the big question. Alabama get in or Tennessee for two SEC teams? And several sources I've heard actually said that made the comment that I think some people here have made is that where was Alabama's key victory this year? What real wins did Alabama have when you look at their schedule overall? Let me see. Let's see. Because if you look each team's schedule, it is how you compare these head to head. Look at common opponents, things like that. Let's see. Let's see here. Let's see. Looking here, just trying to do stuff on the fly. So remember, like you said, if there's anything else you want to put in there, well, of course, Saban's going to complain about everything because that's what Saban does. Yes, Alabama finished 5th, just ahead of Tennessee. The question is, though, when you look at that, yes, see, Geeky, you got support here from an Auburn fan. Yeah, exactly. Let's look at that for a minute. I mean, let's look at this for a minute. Let's have fun. We got a few minutes, and let's look at Alabama's schedule. Okay, they beat Utah State. They won at Texas in a game they should have lost, but won 20-19. Who knows what happened if Texas's quarterback had stayed healthy? They beat Louisiana Monroe, Vanderbilt. They beat an Arkansas team that went in the tank. They beat an A&M team that went in the tank, and they only won by 4. And it took a last play on defense to stop A&M from actually winning the game. They had the classic matchup with Tennessee. They won at Mississippi State, who went in mediocrity. LSU, they lost to. Mississippi, they beat, but really, what is Mississippi? I mean, when you look at who has Mississippi beaten? Appalachian State and Auburn. I mean, it's you look at that, and it's like, where is the gorgeous win? Where is the sexy win there? In terms of trying to evaluate them as being a top team. You look at Tennessee, though, the wins over Ball State. They beat a ranked Pittsburgh team on the road. Akron, they beat Florida at home when Florida was ranked earlier in the year. They blasted out the SEC Western Division winner LSU, who's ranked, on the road. They beat Alabama at home, beat Tennessee Martin. They beat a ranked Kentucky team that was supposed to have something this year. Let me say hi real quick. Hey, Castle. Exactly. Rankings are very subjective and opinionated, and a lot of people push that they want Alabama and everything for ratings and stuff. And so Tennessee ends up losing to Georgia in a 14-point game. Blast Missouri, who's a team that Georgia barely beat. Unfortunately for Tennessee, the thing that they got to look at is that ugly loss to South Carolina. I mean, it was not close. They just got blasted out of the stadium with that road against South Carolina. That probably is the one thing that really is held against Tennessee. Even though they played on the road, you can't go on the road and lose to a team like that by 25 points and expect to be up in playoff contention. Although then South Carolina goes on the road and beats Clemson. So, that's the thing is that's why when I like to evaluate teams, I do like these head-to-head matchups. I don't care about the computers. I don't care what people say, but sometimes you can see a lot in these head-to-head matchups. I think you can see a lot when at the time the game was played, if a team was ranked, you got to give that some credit. Just because a team goes in the toilet later does not mean that they were not good at one point in the season. And of course, Tennessee finishes the season with Vanderbilt. So that is, I mean, head to head. I mean, you can point out the Pittsburgh game, the LSU game. Even if you pick those two, when you compare to what Alabama has, what does Alabama have? It really, really, is what it comes down to. Yes, I agree. Something was weird that night because they were playing without one defender, but it's like one defender should not have made that kind of difference. That was like video game football because I know Geek and I were watching that game and we were just observing it, and like it was like no defense. I mean, I did Tennessee maybe stop them once or twice the whole game. It was bizarre. I mean, I had not seen any team play defense that bad as Tennessee did that night. And I know Bama put points up on them, but Bama had to work for it. But South Carolina was just going through there. So, and then Small Time Republic says if Tennessee had beaten South Carolina, they would be deserving of the 4th spot. But the committee would have factored in Hooker's injury. Yeah, I'm afraid that's true too. Because having Tennessee with Joe Milton versus Tennessee with Hendon Hooker makes a big difference. And which is it fair? Is it not fair? I think you reward the team, but then again, also if you're trying to consider best team, then you may have to consider the personnel. But then again, who knows? If that game had gone differently, maybe Hooker had it been a closer game and they were not having to pass like they were doing and stuff, maybe the offensive schemes would have been different. Maybe Hooker may not have been injured. And that's a big thing with football is you cannot woulda, coulda, shoulda all the time, and it's what makes it. That's another thing that makes college football so fun is the woulda, coulda, shouldas. Especially among rivals. I remember back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, Gator fans always had to wait till next year with Georgia because every year Georgia won. Well, what if, it's like, but wait till next year. And it's like, and that's the beauty of college football is that, generally it changes from year to year. I mean, this year we do have some difference actually in the final 4 teams. We actually have 2 Big 12 teams, two Big 10 teams in the final 4. We actually have a Big 12 team that managed to they lost the game, but they did it at a time where it did not count against them. And then, of course, you've got your at least standard undefeated SEC team there, staying, at the top of the charts. It would have been interesting to see if Alabama had jumped a 1-loss Ohio State team. That could have been interesting to see, more so than Tennessee getting the shaft. What if Alabama had jumped Ohio State? I'm sure we would be hearing riots and everything else now because of that happening. But hey, go figure. It's the system we have, and I saw, I think it's 2024. It's supposed to go to a 12-team playoff. And I saw the interview with Saban on the other night, and he seems to be in favor of a 12-team playoff for this very reason. Let me do this real quick. Let me see. Had there been a 12-team playoff this year, let me give me 1 second to get back to it. Okay. Crap, went too far. Boomer fingers on the phone. Okay. All right. Let's go with this. If we had a 12-team playoff today, in the first round matchups would be number 1 Georgia against number 12 Washington Huskies. And if y'all have any comments on these matchups, feel free to say something if you would like. Also, the first round we would have 2nd seed Michigan against 11th seed Penn State. We'd have 3rd seeded TCU versus USC, the 10th seed. We'd have 4th seed Ohio State versus 9th seed Kansas State. We'd have 5th seed. I know I'm trying to make sure I don't screw this up. This is getting really odd looking at. We'd have Alabama, the 5th seed, against 8th seed Utah. And the final matchup we'd have, which we actually will have in the Orange Bowl. So, Geeky, you can rely on this as a fictitious playoff game, we'd have 6th seed Tennessee and 7th seed Clemson. So, hey. I forgot about that. That's how they do it. Dang it. I'd like the old thing where nobody gets a bye. I think everybody ought to have to play the even number of games, but yeah, that's the way you got to get down to 18. I guess I'd like a 16 team playoff then, to keep it even, because you got to have it. The 12 would be uneven with getting all the matchups out. But theoretically, if they played in a true 12 team matchup, those would be what the matchups are. But I tell you, I don't like, if you start giving people buys, then I don't know. To me, it gives too much of the unfair advantage, and everybody should just keep playing the same number of games. And you know what? And honestly, that may mean 1 or 2 less regular season games. Because you do have the thing about injuries and stuff like that. So, yes, it's going to be an interesting game without Hendon, because you're not playing Vanderbilt either. So let me say, small time. I like that bye because it rewards you for winning an extra game, and that's true. Because like what you said, you got a conference champion that actually has played another game, and I didn't think of it from that angle, small time. But thank you for that clarification, because that is a good point, and that does make a difference. Because see, if you look at the 5 teams at the 5 conference championship games, each of these teams that played in it, whether they won or lost, will have played 13 games this season, versus 12 as to everybody else. So what small time saying here is, if you use a 12, you'd have your conference champions having already played 13 games while everybody else has played 12. And so it kind of, that bye gives a balance to it and rewarding them for the conference championship. So thank you for that clarification, small time. And that's a very important clarification there that you had. So, all right. Well, folks, thank you for letting me go down that avenue. Guys, I thank y'all so much tonight. Thank you for being here, everybody. I love this chat. Small time, I love you here in the chat. Geeky, y'all do so good. All y'all in the chat, like I said, throw stuff out. If you don't know stuff about football, I'd love to address it and have fun with it. And hopefully the bowl special and the playoff special can be some kind of crazy-ass fun stuff along the way. So, and small times, plus the quarterfinals will be on campus, which is cool, and it gives the seeds a reward of those seeds 5 to 8, which he's saying there will be the higher seeds in those matchups. It'll be 5 versus 12, so forth. So they get to have another home game too. So which maybe eventually you may see fewer games in the regular season, but it's all speculation on that on my part. But yeah, the quarterfinals on campus. There's also been a lot of talk about any playoff system being on campus versus being used in the bowl system as they are currently doing it. So, well, with that, I'm going to say I got to get ready to go somewhere else. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I mean, I appreciate it. This chat has been amazing tonight talking football. Small time is great to have you and all your insight. Geeky, as always, to you. Castle, thank you coming in with that loud voice. I appreciate you being here. And, and you're right. That's the thing with polls. And Mrs., thank you as always for being here. The bot that came through, well, just make sure you get information to real people that will maybe come watch sometime. Just going through. Atwood, thank you for being here through here. And, of course, Squeaka, thank you for coming through tonight. And I think that's about everybody that I've got. So on that note, let's finish up. So we got the playoff special. We got the playoff special on the 29th, the bowl special on the 15th. And with that, let's see, let me make sure I get down there so I don't miss anything. Oh, great. Yeah. So with that, folks, I bid you where am I at? Hey, don't forget our links on YouTube and Twitch, both the Dadman Walking 55. Go back, watch the replays, stuff like that. And like I said, if you're new and watch this later, or if you missed some episodes during the year, go back, find the old episodes, watch it, at least for our guests and their stories with football. It's been an amazing year, and the stuff that I've heard, I've learned, and just so much other good stuff. So thank you all for being here. And of course, let's like and subscribe. Let's get On the YouTube side, if we can get 100, we'll have something special. So as always, but if you're on Twitch, follow. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And with that, I will say warm good night and God bless to everybody. And hope you have a great night, a great week today and coming up. And look forward to seeing you again soon on Fortnite or any other broadcast we got. Thank you. Bye, all.